Hello everyone, welcome to Getting Around the Ozarks. I'm Aubrey.
I'm Nathan.
Nathan. And we're out here in the beautiful Ozark Mountains looking for some wild edibles. And we've got a few to show you, and we're looking forward to exploring. Okay, well, our first plant today is the Jerusalem artichoke. And this is a plant that flowers through most of late spring through summer, and you want to use it after the flowers are done. So harvesting time is going to be October to January later in the year. A really popular use is for the tubers in the stalk, and you can also grind up the plant matter and use it for like a vegetable mayonnaise or use it in a salad. But funnily enough, this is such a plentiful weed that in London they actually kind of grew to despise it because it was so plentiful that the plant would actually become something that people didn't want because it was so used. It was used in pies, it was used in breads, they'd make jellies out of it. So that's a really useful one. Whoa, wait. All right. So right here, we've had these before on excursions. This is your common clover, and it'll have white flowers, red flowers, yellow flowers. And this is a really popular plant in the early spring because they're so plentiful. There's actually a Chinese tradition where the first person who found the clover of the year would declare a party, and they would eat as much clover as they possibly could. And an added benefit of that is after the winter, the detoxification aspects of this green are really good, and a lot of people will throw it in salad mixes, and kind of has a little bit of a citrusy sweet flavor sometimes. It's really delicious.
Yeah, the zing of the citrus would make it a really great addition to some green juice.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very good for you. It's good raw. But a good way to do it is just a little bit of water with a little bit of heat. Just cook it just enough to get it a little soft and still be crunchy. Cool. Okay, we found another one here that is a very common yard nuisance or weed, and it's plantain. There's several different varieties. You can have the round leaves or more long oblong leaves, and they often have grass white flower sprouts coming up or green spiked sprouts coming up. You can find these all over your yard and weeds everywhere, but it's really popular again as another salad mix. It's a really good spinach replacement. And again, the best method is to just Chinese it, and that's a little bit of water, a little bit of heat, just moisten it up and soften it up a little bit. But those are plentiful, and they're so plentiful that you can harvest them all year round. You can find them everywhere and throw it into your diet. It's really versatile.
Hi, we just found our first pawpaw. I knew there was pawpaws in this location, and it actually turns out there's a whole lot more than I suspected. We've got like an entire pawpaw forest. These large leafed, really slender trees, you can see them all down in here. And right here is a pawpaw fruit. This is an immature one, it's not ripe yet. They get to be about this big around. And when they're ripened up, they're a little softer, and they're kind of taste like bananas. They got a lot of sugar in them. You don't want to eat the skin though, because it can hurt your stomach. And I've heard that some people can have allergic reactions to pawpaws. So as with any new type of food that you're going to take into yourself, you should start slow and make sure that it's something you really want to try out before you dive all the way in. But we're gonna take a little further hike and see if we can't find ripe pawpaws that are ready to eat.
Let's do it.
So here is a candidate pawpaw that might possibly be ripe.
It's possible.
It's possible that this one could be edible. I think I might let it go a little longer though. Getting close. You could pick this and then let it ripen maybe on the kitchen counter in the sunlight. This one's got some sugar in it, you can tell.
So the Wild Missouri Edibles Guide says that pawpaws are Missouri's answer to the banana. Short, soft fruits, about 3 to 5 inches long, so 5 inches on this one. Once the pawpaw falls to the ground, long before the frost, they are easy to gather. Picking up pawpaws, putting them in a basket, old Missouri saying. The fruits, which turn from a yellow to green to a brownish color, remind of a cross between a persimmons and an overripe banana. They may be baked by placing one in foil, skin and all, leaving for 10 minutes or so in an oven at 350. If you relish the campfire dessert called banana boats, you might find this appealing with pawpaws. One of the favorite ways to use the pawpaw is to use a colander and to get the pulp. You substitute the pawpaw pulp for bananas in nut breads. You can also use pawpaw to make ice creams or sorbets, sherbets, jellies, or marmalade. So this is the black walnut. Flowers from April to May. Description of the leaves are that they're alternate and compound. 13 to 25 leaflets, top smooth, bottom downy. The male catkins droop and the female flowers are on spikes. It's the walnut family. Their habitat is rich woods, base of slopes, valleys, streams, open woods, and fields. The use is the nuts, pie, and bread.
I love black walnuts.
An interesting quote from this book is that anything that stains as fiercely as walnut hulls must be protecting something precious or valuable inside. And indeed that is the case. Black walnuts have a strong taste, not pleasing to everyone. It's got a little bit of that bitter flavor. And this lady said, personally, I find them positively delicious, as do I. She enjoys them fresh or used in baking. Fudge candies, you can use black walnuts. It's luscious for fudge candies, apparently. Another tasty way to use your favorite cookie recipe with black walnuts added, right? So it's kind of a nuts snacking kind of thing, and if you really want, you can make a bread meal out of it. So really all around useful, great trees to have around.
I prefer them raw myself.
Yeah. Limestone is a fossiliferous stone that is made from actually compressed seabed. So this entire face to the right of us is a seafloor from millions of years ago, and all the calcium buildup in it is the bones and the calcium that helped structure the animals and plants that lived in the shallow water sea that covered the majority of the central United States area. Another interesting fact is that makes this region of the world one of the oldest raised areas that hasn't been changed or subducted. It's kind of the middle of 3 plates, and that's why we have the New Madrid Fault here. But you definitely want to be careful for things like this. You know, if you hear any snapping or rocks falling, you might want to move into the bush a little bit and try to get an awareness of where that's coming from. So often in the Ozark Mountain regions, there's a lot of flint. So Native Americans and indigenous peoples in this region, in other words, other places in the world that didn't have access to obsidian would use flint, because if you break a little bit off, let me just show you this. I haven't even trained this or tried to make an arrowhead out of it, but as you can see, that is very, very sharp. And flint, for thousands of years, has been used as a tool making device for knives, for axe heads, all sorts of things. Very fundamental. Popped off over here. Let's see if I can get a really sharp little piece. Here's this way. Yeah. And if you want to show them, see how it goes from this gray colored, and then it moves into this layered crumbling pieces. A lot of that has to do with the calcium, so it's actually crystalline on some levels, but I don't know too much about flint. I just know it's really sharp, and you want to be careful with it.
Can I have it?
This here is a large piece of calcite, and this is very prominent in the Ozark Mountain region, as the mountains again are a raised seabed made of limestone. And like I was saying earlier, limestone has calcium in it, and this is like the most compressed version of the seafloor. It's normally the lowest, lower on the mountainside, and that's where you'll find these more smooth they kind of remind you of flint, but if you try to break it, it won't cleave off in sharp edges. It's more square patterned and all of that.
If
Yeah,
you're
that's a cool
really
one.
lucky, you can find a calcite crystal, which is a yellow clear crystal that's sort of like an oblong square shape.
Probably in the mountain, yeah. In a cave in there. Probably could. There's some quartz runners over here on this thing too. This tree actually might be, there's a weird anomaly with trees throughout North America and other large forests throughout the world, where you can find these trees that are at right angles and they're trained kind of in a very non-natural manner. They'll be like this, and you can find them all throughout Georgia and Virginia and other places where there were large Native American settlements. And many people believe that they're trail markers for multi-mile highway systems through the woods. And if you see a tree like that, know that someone may have done it. It's really interesting. As we can see here, there is a mushroom that definitely is warning you not to eat it, as it is totally black. And really so, mushrooms and plants in general, you don't want to eat anything unless you know for 100% certain fact and are willing to take your life in that direction. So definitely don't eat anything that you're not 100% sure about, and that's common knowledge. Just stick with that and you'll be good.
Well, this mushroom here definitely looks poisonous. We do have chantel mushrooms that are nice and bright orange in color, kind of small, that grow on this hillside. I saw some earlier this year. They're very valuable if you wanted to go on a foraging expedition. So I wouldn't drink any water that's downstream from that guy, but we're actually pretty close to a natural spring. It's only a couple hundred yards up the hill on the right. And one of the great things about having a natural spring nearby is that you can have an easy source of water that is there all year round if you have a good spring. So while we're not right at the head of the spring, you can actually drink water a little bit further down the stream, especially if it's running off of a mossy decline like this. This area with all this green, beautiful moss, it makes an excellent biofiltration system to get the water nice and pure and structured with good vibrations and energy to pump you full of life and to drain all of those nasties out of you.
So another good aspect to mention is it's best to avoid pools of water like found to the left, because those are going to have sediment buildup in them. It's still very likely going to be clean, but if you want to avoid mud or any particulate matter or any stone matter, you're going to want to go for what Nathan's going for here, which is the stuff that's literally running over the surface of these plants. So any excess minerals or any sand gets trapped in the filaments and hairs of the lichen, and then you're getting the most minerally balanced and healthy water on earth, really though. Because you have to think, as this moves through the minerals in the landscape, it's picking up all the essentials that we need as humans to survive.
Very balanced pH.
Very balanced. Good little watering hole trick. Let me get a sip of that. Let me get a sip of that. Lifeblood of Mother Earth.
There's nothing
Delicious.
like the taste of natural, fresh spring water from the Ozark Mountains. Not to be confused with Ozarka spring water. This is the real deal.
No minerals added back in, it's all here. No metal flavors.
Nice and cool and crisp on a hot
yeah.
summer day.
Oh yes, I agree. really quench your thirst.
This plant right here has an excellent texture and color. It's nice and soft. It feels like it's got a lot of water in it. I don't know exactly what it was, but I wouldn't be afraid to experiment with just a little taste at first. You could just, for something new like this, you could just start with the very tip of the leaf and then see the vibration of it. Not bad. If it was me and I lived here, I might even start making juice out of this guy because he looks nice and juicy.
Here we are again, and we're just checking out these plantains again. They're almost impossible to miss, all over the field. Super prevalent plant. It flowers from April to October. The description is that basal leaves, parallel appearing veins, stalk holds terminal spikes. It's found in dry soils, pastures, lawns, and fields. Scattered statewide, so you can find it in various regions throughout the entirety of Missouri. Used as a pot herb, salad, and tea. So as a salad, it's very similar to spinach in that you're going to either want to bruise it or lightly boil it to make it more digestible, but it's very good for you, very high in nutrients. And some people even make a tea that's medicinal. You put several leaves into a cup of water and boil it for 3 to 5 minutes. It's useful for ridding the body of worms, for bouts of diarrhea and bedwetting, surprisingly enough. So.
Oh yes, and we should mention the bruising method for pre-treating your greens.
Yeah, I forgot that.
Because it was something that was new to me until Aubrey showed me.
Right, so things like kale and spinach and really fibrous, strong greens, something like the plantain again. You could eat it raw, but the fact of it is that your body ends up digesting more of this as a type of fiber, in a sense. So if you can put a citric acid in the mix of your greens, say apple cider vinegar or lemon, and you just give them a nice squish for a couple minutes and let them soak in that, helps with the bitterness, and it really opens the cell walls, in a sense, to allow your body to metabolize it a lot better.
Yes, and speaking of medicinal teas, we saw a black walnut tree earlier, you may remember. And you might not know this, but black walnut leaves actually make a delicious tea that rids your body of parasites.
Well, thank you so much for spending the day with us, everyone. It's been an awesome time. I hope you learned something new, and as we continue to learn more, we look forward to showing you more about the plants from the Ozark Mountain region that can help make your life better and be something that you can add into your diet.
Yes, and when we see some new mushrooms, or I guess they're old mushrooms actually, but new to us, when we see some new mushrooms in the woods, we'll be sure to make another episode, so please be sure to tune in the future.